When the night falls over San Francisco, the neon lights of the city cast long reflections on the wet streets. In one quiet neighborhood, a small apartment window glows faintly behind drawn curtains. To anyone passing by, it looks ordinary. Maybe a lonely bachelor's room, maybe a place where strangers come and go. But what no one knew was that this room wasn't an apartment at all. It was a government laboratory, a stage for a secret experiment run by the CIA, under a project so bizarre that it sounds like fiction. They called it Operation Midnight Climax. And inside those walls, America's own intelligence officers were secretly drugging citizens with LSD, filming their reactions and studying how far a human mind could break under the spell of control. To understand how this began, we have to go back to the early 1950s, when the Cold War was not just about missiles and maps, but about minds. After World War II, the United States learned that Nazi scientists had experimented with chemicals to manipulate behavior. The Soviets were rumored to be developing a truth drug, and the CIA, desperate not to fall behind, launched a secret program known as MK-Ultra. Officially, it was called mind control research. Unofficially, it became a dark playground of untested drugs, hypnosis, and psychological torture. The man behind it was Sidney Gottlieb, a quiet chemist who believed LSD could unlock the secrets of the human mind. He thought it might make people confess secrets, erase memories, even turn them into programmable assassins. But before it could be weaponized, it had to be tested on real people. That's where Operation Midnight Climax was born. In 1955, an agent named George Hunter White was assigned to lead the experiments. White wasn't a scientist. He was a tough narcotics officer who loved power, whiskey, and danger. His mission was simple: create an environment where men would completely let their guard down and then secretly drug them with LSD. To do that, he rented a small apartment in San Francisco's Telegraph Hill and transformed it into something straight out of a spy movie. Red velvet curtains, two-way mirrors, dim lights and microphones hidden in lamps and walls. To outsiders, it looked like a normal bachelor's den. But behind the mirror, CIA agents sat quietly, watching every movement. Women, often recruited from the streets, would bring men into the apartment for what looked like a private encounter. The drinks were secretly spiked with LSD, and the men, unaware, became living test subjects in America's hidden war on the mind. What followed was chaos. Some of the men laughed uncontrollably, some cried, others screamed in terror. The CIA watched and took notes on every reaction, trying to understand how LSD could influence human behavior. As the operation expanded, George White opened more safe houses in Marin County and New York City. Each one was built with the same design: hidden cameras, recording devices, and a red glow meant to create a false sense of comfort. Behind closed doors, the CIA wasn't just testing drugs, they were testing control itself. Could LSD make someone confess secrets? Could it erase a person's identity? Could it bend a mind so far that it never returned? George White, meanwhile, enjoyed his job far too much. He drank heavily, bragged to friends about his crazy experiments, and even hosted LSD parties where CIA agents, prostitutes, and unsuspecting guests took part in bizarre, drug-fueled nights. In one of his letters, White wrote to Gottlieb, "I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun." His idea of fun was destroying lives, all in the name of national security. There was no scientific structure, no ethics, and certainly no consent. Every smile, panic, or hallucination was recorded and sent to Washington as if it were valuable data. The truth was, it was madness disguised as research. By the early 1960s, the experiment began to collapse. Rumors leaked, journalists and lawmakers started asking questions, and George White, aging and paranoid, quietly retired. The CIA shut down the safe houses, destroyed the equipment, and shredded most of the documents. For years, no one outside the agency knew what really happened. Then, in 1974, a journalist's investigation in the New York Times exposed the MK-Ultra program to the world. Soon, the U.S. Senate launched the Church Committee hearings, uncovering pieces of the horrifying truth behind Operation Midnight Climax. The American public learned for the first time that their own government had drugged citizens without their knowledge, all for psychological warfare. When reporters later found George White, he was unapologetic. Before he died, he sent a letter to Gottlieb saying, "Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction of the All-Highest?" It was perhaps the most chilling confession of a man who had become addicted to power. The victims were never identified. The data was mostly destroyed. Gottlieb himself retired and vanished quietly. But some historians believe the experiments never truly stopped, that pieces of MK-Ultra evolved into later psychological operations under new names. Operation Midnight Climax remains one of the darkest examples of what happens when science loses its soul and power goes unchecked. Today, the safe houses are gone, but the shadows remain. The walls that once hid secret cameras now hide condos and apartments, and most people walking by will never know what really happened there. Yet the ghosts of those nights, of men laughing, crying, hallucinating, still echo in America's hidden history. Because behind every democracy lies a darker truth, one that waits patiently to be uncovered. This was Operation Midnight Climax, the CIA's secret LSD experiment. A story of deception, manipulation, and the limits of the human mind. If you think you know your history, think again, because the truth is stranger than the lies.